We have maps.
It's good to know if you have to. Who's your English teacher? Oh, okay, sure. All right. So first thing is first. Yes, so I did put it on Teams. It's supposed to take the power school, and hopefully but the short IDs were graded. All the choice will soon be graded, and I gotta figure out the power school is not a very good program. And so I have to, you can't just combine columns. It's really not very good. It's really annoying. Huh?
It usually seems to be.
Yeah, so it's synced, but it hasn't put in your score. So it's probably gonna be in that way till midnight today. If not, I'm about to add it, but yeah, I don't get it. I don't understand anything on that's going on there. And there's a couple little flaws in it, so I'm gonna have to make some changes with it. It's just. I hate policy. But it's like anything else, we're stuck with what we got. Next. So. 987 to 999 for tomorrow, and also the maps. There are two maps in that packet. One basically 1914 before the start of World War I, and one post-war. We got to do a little bit of Europe because it's going to change our world forever, this war. And so make sure that you got those done. I will collect the maps on Monday. And what else? Oh, Friday. So Friday, remember, we're going to have about 15 minutes shorter period. Well, not 15 minutes shorter period, but about 15 minutes left in the period. We are going to go up to the library for you to register. So you have to have your little green slip and everything filled out. Did you guys, if you don't have it, go talk to your counselor. And the thing is, if you don't have it, if you don't have it on Friday, it'll be a total pain for you and annoying, and they'll call you up and you have to wait, get it done, you have to worry about it. And remember, you have to register for 6 classes regardless of what you think you're gonna do next year. And a couple things, I couldn't tell you yesterday because we had the test. And so she went very fast, did a great job, but she had to go 40 minutes, 37 minutes. Oh, yeah. So she went really fast. And so it's kind of my responsibility to talk a little bit about the electives we do have in social studies. We have a few electives, but we don't know what's exactly is going to happen next year because if you know this, we're going to have massive budget cuts. And they might be unprecedented. I'm pretty sure we'll stop school. But that's other than that. Maybe that's me being a dark facetious. That would be quiet. But let's get back to this. You will really find this out when you go to college. But let me tell you really quick about our electives. So first off, I think it'd be a terrible mistake for any of you to not take AP. If you like the class. And the thing about that is there's not the breadth of information of content like this class. So there's more time to talk about current events and more about the ideas that you learn in government and current events, which I think is really interesting. That's a great advantage of a class like that. Just there's not as much stuff, and so they can do that. And that's really cool. And so, and I know Mr. Darnowski does a great job. And secondly, after that, you repeat. We don't take it. Right back to the session. And not that our government people come to it, they do a great job, but I think you have to be this and in this class and now even in other AP classes. And other electives, if you have not taken AP Euro and interested in more of another AP class, I know a lot of you have taken AP Euro already. There's a few seniors in there here and there. Another chance for an AP class is basically from Renaissance to modern European history. And it's a really rewarding class. you know what, for years to get it started, I taught it. And so I really liked it, but I have two history classes. And now she does a great job with spirits down there. That's fantastic. She taught them how to do that. And other than that, let's get to the main electives we have. We have sociology class that Mr. Kelly teaches. My assumption is it would be the same people teaching it, but you know, things are gonna change. I don't know where, but my assumption is, at least for our department, would be the same. Other departments would be some more dramatic things. Mr. Kelly teaches that, and that is a relatively new science in the 19th century, but all things about how societies function. Is anyone in sociology now? Or have anyone taken it? Yeah, I think it's a really cool class, really interesting about how societies function. And there's a little bit of history. I always think of it more like anthropology, kind of the study about cultures and science and society, but sociology is more modern day. It's an element that anybody with a social studies degree has to teach, or has to know. And then we also have, don't ask me why, but psychology is in the social studies department. Because that's a way, kind of an old way of doing human psychology. And Mr. Rayon teaches that. And another former student of mine. There's many former students of mine in here. You had last year? Last period. Oh, last period. And I believe it's psychology 1 and psychology 2. And so if you're really interested in that, I would highly recommend that. He does a great job. And philosophy, of course. There's philosophy, which is a philosophy 1 and philosophy 2. For sure, philosophy 1 will go next year, so they're not going to teach that. It's a semester class. And I was at philosophy, and he really likes it. That's kind of his specialty area. This is our for sure. Philosophy 1 would be.
Oh, okay, I thought you said it was going, I was like, how am I
No,
supposed to take one?
we'll be going as a class. We don't. It's gonna be interesting to see what happens. But philosophy, and I always like philosophy. It's a fun class to take, and he loves it. And that makes it a lot of fun to be in a class where you have a good teacher who likes the subject. And then, other than that, I don't think any of you are gonna take AP human geography freshman. You're kind of thinking about it. And then there are a couple like these I teach. One, which I don't know if it's gonna happen or not, but it's world history. And world history, and that's a pretty broad class. You can take it 1 semester or both semesters, but it's as much of the world as I could get in. And one of the things I like about that is I try to make it a lot of fun, a lot of things we can do because we have to kind of pick and choose what it is. But the big thing I like about world history is in the first semester, we cover things that you really just don't cover anyplace else. So, we start out with prehistory, Sumeria, but then ancient Egypt, which is amazing. Ancient Greece, which a great era to cover, but then my favorite is ancient Rome. Then medieval Europe, we don't really cover. Second semester, we do a little bit more of the world, like we just did, on the Aztecs, we did exploration, we do Renaissance. I just pick and choose and kind of bounce around. I just. And there's certain things I have to cover, but I can pick and choose. And of course, that's gonna be it's not an AP class. It's significantly easier, but still, it's me, so it's me. And then the other class I teach is called Special Topics in American History. And that is it's a 2 semesters, but each semester is different. So the majority of students take both semesters. But for that one, I pick a couple topics, but then I give the class a list and they choose the topics. And I try to do it in such a way that some are going to be like really kind of fun and more lighter topics, and some are a little bit more serious. I try to mix them in there. And so I let people vote on that one, and then I count the votes. And we have a couple people in here that are in special topics in American history. And so like we started this semester with the Cold War and horror movies. Both together, we watched a couple horror movies and talked about the Cold War. And now we're doing faults in America. And we'll do a number of things. We're gonna do assassinations. We're gonna do a little bit on the 2008 financial crash, because we might be having another one very soon. Like, let me check my watch. Let me check my phone. Has it happened yet? Not yet. Okay, good news. Whew, things have gone sour quick. But, 2008 finance class, we finished for history of rock and roll. But my whole point about that class is to have fun in the class. Isabel, you want to add something? Okay, so the whole point is to have fun in that class, and I really try to make it as light as possible. And so right now, we're just working on our calls. We're gonna start a call, get it going. And
volunteers.
Huh? I think some of you would really like that class. That class is designed to be fun. I think you would really like it. And, yeah, I think. And Luke are, and it's a good class. I really. And other than that, that's about it. One more thing, if you want to take a class, take it. Don't worry about what the schedule change every year. When they go, there's a conflict, I want to take. Sign up for 6. And I know you might have to drop and might do a little work with the counselor, but sign up for classes. With the budget cuts we have right now, they're gonna require more people to take classes than ever before. And if you're not sure about it, then you might say, well, maybe I'll think about it next year. And you don't sign up for it now, why not go? You're in that dire straits, right? And so sign up for the classes you are really interested in, put them down and take as many electives as you can get. Because after you walk out this door, when you graduate, you will never have this opportunity. You have to pay a lot. You ready for the part B? You need a sheet of paper? I'm not kidding. You'll never have this opportunity again. Take advantage of that. We have some great electives in every department. Even though I know the jury's still out on science. We have great science electives. We have great English and spec, everyone come.
I do every single second in this class.
All right, so let's go take your notes out. I might tell you a story about Teddy Roosevelt at the end of the period. So let's get started. World War I. New unit would be World War I in the 20s. This is kind of a biggie. I don't know what's going to happen actually. This is going to be. With the budget cuts that are coming from the federal government, I have no idea what's going to happen. Oh, yeah, that was Reed, wasn't it? That's a really good picture. Thank you for doing that. Look, you're doing, satanic panic, right? Andy, what's your cult again?
Oh, Heaven's Gate.
Heaven's Gate. Yeah, I knew it once I had.
Heaven's Gate, and the last slide is the 2x2s.
Yeah, Heaven's Gate. Whew. Some of you might have heard of Heaven's Gate. It's pretty amazing.
That was in this Thursday's when we start.
Yeah, we're doing People's Temple on Thursday. All right, here we go. So World War I. And the thing about it is that World War I, there's a couple iconic images, but this in many ways gives our world today. We are living in the shadow of World War I to this day. And it's amazing, over 100 years ago, how much impact this first wide-scale industrial war, it was the apocalypse. And it blew people away. And I took this picture, okay, it's German soldiers, they're posing, but it has so many iconic images from the war. The trench, machine guns, widespread use at that time. First helmets. First actual, let me rephrase it. Helmets that actually protected you. Not the little ornamental little piece of steel they wore in the beginning of the war. Every helmet in the world today copies the German logo. The U.S. helmet, the U.S. Army and the Marines would adopt that helmet in 1980. The German World War I helmet. It's kind of amazing. And then, of course, gas masks. Here's another picture of German soldiers. I just used German because I found one that was so perfect. The horses with gas masks too. Added to the hell of this war. That's incomprehensible how bad it was. And the thing was, they were talking about this war for years. The threat of apocalypse, they were all ready for it. Just talking about the big war is coming. Now, there have been a few wars in Europe, a big one called the Franco-Prussian War in 1870, and a couple of wars between between Russia and the Ottoman Empire. But there hasn't been a big full-scale European conflict, what way to put it, since 1815. Napoleon was defeated at Waterloo. And there was just feeling almost like a war is inevitable, it's going to happen. And they kept talking about the apocalypse is coming, Armageddon is coming. And the problem with that is if you keep saying something is coming, get ready for it, something it's inevitable, it's going to happen. Well, you'll make it inevitable. You will make it happen. And that's why by 1914, there's almost a feeling like finally it's happened. Now we can do it and get it over with, which is a pretty scary thing. And of course, nobody knew what they were going to get into. They did all these maps. There are hundreds of these maps of Europe as little caricatures. They have all kinds of ones, but caricatures. This is right before the war. This is actually in July, or right before August 1914. So it's July, in June. And so we have Russia as this big monster. Here's Austria and Germany, bayonet in the nose. See the foot, so it's German crushing France. The pistol through Belgium. I'm not sure what Britain is, but it's kind of scary. Scottish man on a ship. Nobody likes Serbia. She's like a pig. And then Montenegro is like a roly-poly bug for reasons I don't know. But they had so many of these. The point is they were expecting war. So since we got to do a little bit of European history, because this will change America forever too, what were the factors that led to war? And many of these factors we'll see in different ways in the United States. Of course, industrialization. Remember, the Industrial Revolution began in Britain, United States. For various reasons, France was a little bit slow. Belgium, Germany would begin in 1860s, 1870s, and then just explode. Russia was just beginning it at turn of the century. So they were just going through rapid industrialization just as the war began. But the thing is, there's all these inequalities. Remember, capitalism, this great tool for innovation, but also focuses wealth to the top. Remember, to own the capital, get all the profit. The feeling wasn't class war. What really was it? Oh, yeah, the field trip, yeah. So, and the whole thing was, remember socialism, anarchism. The thought was there'll be a kind of a working class socialist or anarchist civil war. I told you about anarchist assassination attempts all over. They were still going on. There were still bombing threats. There were many assassinations. Just early on in this century, the Kaiserina, the Empress of Austria, was assassinated by an anarchist. So these were happening all over. Don't forget the US president was assassinated by Leon Czolgosz. And so that fear of Armageddon, this inevitable class war. Now it turned out to not be a class war, but they all thought it would be. So you have Germany with this huge socialist party. Over 1 million came out to march on May Day, 1914, in Berlin for workers' rights. A couple weeks later, for the Kaiser's birthday, 1 million came out to celebrate him. Just this dynamic and kind of scary Europe. And this was at a time where the United States was the largest industrial power, but the European powers were huge, especially Britain, Germany, and France. But industrial power is something else. It's military power. The more shells, steel, gunpowder, chemicals you can make makes you more powerful. Only the most industrialized countries can fight a war, and therefore need that wealth that came from this. And industrialization wins wars are now factories, targets. 1916, these are British women making shells for artillery. Heavy shells. And this is the effects of one of the first bombing raids from the air. Remember total war from Sherman and the March to the Sea? But now the weapons are changing dramatically. Next, 17th century monarchs. So, nation states as we know it, around 14, 15, but by the 1600s, that's where you start getting these monarchies establishing themselves. And many of them tried to maintain. Yet the whole world was changing. Industrialization, urbanization, more people demanding political and economic rights. And yet you have these monarchs thinking they're still autocrats. And so you have this old trying to hold on to it desperately, the monarchs and those who want to benefit from the nobility, and the new who wants political but also economic rights. And this is a great picture. But 1890. Queen Victoria's birthday. Queen Victoria of Britain, the Empress of India. You see her? Right there. And everybody in that picture is directly related to her. And they're all monarchs from all over Europe. And they're all related to her. So you have these interlocking monarchies. Remember, monarchy. Now, if you have a son or daughter, they must marry somebody of equal status. Who's equal? They got to have royal blood, meaning they're cousins marrying cousins. So, for example, that's her stepson, the Kaiser of Germany. He would die very quickly, had throat cancer, died really, really early on in his reign. His son, Victoria's grandson, would be the Kaiser of Germany in World War I began. Her cousin, her great nephew would marry his cousin and become the Tsar of Russia. Directly related to, soon to become the King of England. You get the point here, they're all related. We have everybody from all of every monarch. She was also a carrier of just a little gene to cause a little disease. That would be spread throughout the royal families of Europe. You might have heard of it, called hemophilia. And it all came from Queen Victoria. So they're all related. And the thing about monarchies is this. You're stuck as a country on whoever the heir is, the eldest son or eldest son. You're stuck with these inbred leaders. And that's what they are. For example, him. After his dad died, he was very young. Kaiser Wilhelm II would become the Emperor of Germany. Kaiser means Caesar. Tsar means Caesar. And that is Kaiser Wilhelm II. And he was incredibly unstable, lacked self-esteem. And it all stemmed from, well, first off, every eldest son of a monarch, they hate their father. And it's like endemic in monarchies. And the father is desperate for a combination of their son, live up to their legacy, but also they look at their son and think, you're waiting for me to die, so you can become king. There's a lot of anger there. Every son in every monarchy must go to military academy. So, for example, the sons of the King of England, they all went to a military academy. They're all soldiers because they got to be a warrior king. And do you see what's wrong with the Kaiser? He's You have a question? What's his leadership? Kaiser, he's the emperor. Yeah, the emperor. Kaiser means the emperor, or Caesar. Yeah, sorry, I wasn't clear on that. And do you see what's wrong with him? His arms. You see it? There's a breech birth. And so in the process of birth, they dislocated his shoulder. It never grew. They didn't realize it was dislocated. And so he has a withered left arm. It's about 2/3 as long. He would always keep it bent, or have it like here. See, it's holding. It's having holding basically up above. His fingers are smaller. And this withered left arm. And so this was seen as a weakness. And so his father had him just brutally treated to make him a tougher, to become emperor. And so he went through just hell. And for the rest of his life, he would try to compensate for this. He would try to compensate. Think about it. People make fun of him for the way they're not. Can he really be a warrior king? Who's going to make fun of his with that dog and have strong? That's unstable. To give you an example of how unstable he was, he built up his right arm to compensate. So when he became emperor, he would still every day take a double-bladed axe with one arm and chop wood for him. One arm. If you chop wood, you know how difficult that would be. He built that to be incredibly powerful. And he would do things like this. He would come up to somebody, shake their hand, shake. And sometimes just random, especially people who are in all status, just start squeezing. His arm was so powerful, he would literally squeeze into the knuckles cracked and sometimes broke bones. And just squeeze. The guy went on his knees screaming. And he would have a conversation with somebody else that's sort of like withering in pain. That's not normal. Just so you know, if you're not clear. And he did not have full control of Germany, but he controlled their army. That's unstable. That's who you're stuck with. And he's desperate to show how tough he is. And he's very jealous of his, well, uncle, then soon to be cousin, who's king of England. And his cousin, who's also the Tsar of Russia. They're all related. Speaking of the Tsar of Russia, his cousin, Tsar Nicholas II, even more of an autocratic emperor, thank you very much. More autocratic. He didn't want to be emperor, hated his father because he was an emperor. And he was during the Russo-Japanese War, he was Tsar of Russia right then, and it was a disaster. And so there was nearly a revolution. He felt very weak, and he's supposed to be ordained by God to be king or to be Tsar. And he was seen as, whenever they saw him, people were just unimpressed at all. But the other thing is, the Tsar of Russia needs a son. After Catherine the Great, the nobility of Russia made sure that only men could be czars. And he had 4 daughters. There's 4 daughters. Man. Didn't have a son. And then he finally had a son. But remember, that Queen Victoria, the son had hemophilia. Do you know what hemophilia is? Your blood cannot produce platelets, and therefore cannot clot. And therefore, a cut will just be. Now, a cut, that's really bad, but that's not what kills you. Determined. Just bleeds and bleeds and bleeds. It swells out, cuts off blood vessels, that can kill. And I guess the pain is beyond knowledge. As I understand it, it just hurts so bad. And he was constantly there. But since he was finally had a son, and they didn't want to admit this imperfection in this godlike Tsar, they kept that secret from the people of Russia. But the only thing that seemed to comfort their son, especially when he was injured, was a monk from Siberia named Rasputin. Now, this is a little story. I bet a lot of you have heard of Rasputin. And the thing about Rasputin was his presence seemed to comfort their son. So they kept him in the family. Soon he is like a part of the family. Here he is with the family. And he began to provide advice. He began to, and sometimes considered it disastrous, but he seemed to be an intimate member. Yet he would go out to St. Petersburg and drink more than any human could drink, and carouse and be kind of a lecturous, just corrupt man, and yet he has influence within the Tsar or within the Tsar's family, and nobody knows why. There's going to be rumors that he is having an affair with the Tsarina, the Tsar's wife, etc. Now, why am I telling you about Rasputin? That made the whole thing look even more corrupt, autocratic. Why do we need a Tsar if he's surrounding himself with men like this? Ironically, Rasputin did give some disastrous advice. He gave very good advice before World War I, and the Tsar ignored it. Kind of one of the great ironies. We'll come back to Rasputin. The point is, they seem corrupt and out of place. Heck, the emperor of the Austrian Empire, if you look over here, Austria is huge and getting very weak. It's massive. Franz Joseph became emperor in 1848. And he's still emperor to this day. So, okay, he died in 1960. But still, it was his wife that was killed by an anarchist. I mean, look at Tsar Nicholas II and King George V. Isn't that creepy? They're cousins, but they're so interbred. The way to put it. They look exactly alike, don't they? They could be brothers. George Nicholas. So, imperialism. So we are talking about wars for empire. We know what imperialism is, empire for profit. Imperialism, by 1914, this desire for import or empire would break or would carve up much of the world. Remember, they had the open door in China, French, Dutch, English, much of Africa taken, still a few spots in the Americas. The sun never set on the British Empire. It was so vast. And you have all this competition for empire. Just look at Europe itself. In Central Europe, there's no Poland. It says Poland here, but it's part of Russia, Germany, and Austria. Think how many countries today are what the old Austrian Empire was. And you still have this huge Ottoman Empire here. And this conflict over empire here will be the trigger of war. And indirectly, World War II and a horrible 1990 Civil War. But look at Africa. In 1870, there are a few spots of Africa that had been colonized and taken by European powers. By 1914, all of Africa, except for 2 places, had been taken and carved up in artificial borders that they're still stuck with them today for the colonial powers. I mean, they gave the entire area they called the Congo. They gave it to the king of Belgium. The whole thing. All this is French, British, German, Portuguese, Spanish. Only 2 places remain independent. One, they defeated an Italian invasion force in 1894, Ethiopia. You might see it called Abyssinia too, maps at that time. You remember the other one that was started by the American Colonization Society? You remember the American Colonization Society? Say it again? Yeah, Liberia right there. But that was only kind of partially independent because it's actually being led by the former slaves. But the point was, you had all this desire for empire and conflict. Wars for empire mean colonial armies. They mean imperial wars. They mean secret police. They mean they're going to be fighting. And now the United States is right in the middle of it. Don't forget the Philippines, etc. Nationalism. Nationalism is another one. Now we've talked about nationalism. There's 2 basic elements of nationalism. As I mentioned before, we had nationalism starting in the United States after the War of 1812. And this idea of love for your country because it's your country, your national identity. And you love your national identity because it is yours. Now, it could be by ethnic group or language. You know, we are the Germans, we're the French, we're the Japanese, whatever it might be. The Americans kind of had to make it up. What it meant to be an American. That's part of the reason why nativism was such a big issue. What is a real American? You love your country, not for what it stands for, but because it's your country. Your national identity. And especially for places in Europe, more and more, and Japanese were the same way, or this intense devotion to your state. All messed up. I jumped the gun here. So if you're a people who don't have your own country, like the Poles, you want your own Poland. If you don't have a country, but you want one, like the Czechs, you want your own country. Or for that matter, the Lithuanians, the Latvians, the Estonians. A new group that was just being acknowledged at this time called the Ukrainians, etc. You want your own state. But then this intense devotion to your state and fear that invasion might happen will lead to places like the Germans thinking that our nation is under threat and they're jealous to us. And this fits in very well with that social Darwinistic idea that the blood of Americans is being polluted. What is that called? I told you this before, where they thought was we might be selective breeding to make sure that, say it again? Eugenics. That started in the Americas, the 1890s, was going through Europe at this time and becoming quite popular, especially for nationalistic reasons. So here's Austria, Russia, Germany. And you'll notice all these different groups here. The largest ethnic group, kind of a blanket ethnic group for much of this area right here, that aren't Germans, aren't Hungarians, are Slavs. And there was a movement going into the 20th century called Pan-Slavism, a Slavic state. A Slavic state. And Austria-Hungary is in the way. Because Austria-Hungary has all these Slavic groups in it. That map with the different colors, those are the different ethnic groups in Austria. Okay, Austrians are ethnically German. Hungarians, Magyars. And they have kind of a dual monarchy, but the monarch is Austrian. And then have all these other different groups. Austria was just this hodgepodge, and these are just the big ones. These are Croats, Bosnians, Slovenes, they're Slavs. Transylvanians, Slavs. Ukrainians, Slavs. Poles, Slavs. Okay, Czechs, all Bohemia and Moravians, okay, they're not Slavs. Germans, got Italians. It's kind of amazing how multicultural that was. And these people want independence. And you can imagine Austria is thinking, if they revolt, our empire is done. They're going to spend the last 50 years of their existence trying to tap down revolution. But right here is a country called Serbia. It's a Slavic nation. And Serbia says, will be the pan-Slavic nation called Greater Serbia. Greater Serbia would happen after World War I. Does anybody know what it was called? Huh? That's another place. Yugoslavia. Czechoslovakia is north of it, and that's the Slovaks, Moravians, and Czechs. And some Germans. Well, I didn't mention one other thing. There's also a massive population in urban areas of Jews in this area. And also Roma people. This is an incredibly diverse area. So, Greater Serbia. Once you start getting nationalism in here, it's good. It's pretty dangerous. Try to make that picture look like a pig. Doesn't it kind of look like a pig? Snout, here, Serbia. Serbia, nobody liked. Well, Serbia says we will be the Slavic center. And so they begin to intrigue in the Austrian Empire to get the Slavs here to revolt against Austria. And that immediately now puts Serbia against Austria. Austria just annexed Bosnia. There's a bunch of stuff going on. We're not going to go into detail. But the point is, Austria and Serbia now are, well, Serbia is eyeing a revolution in Austria, and therefore Austria is terrified of Serbian influence. And Austria wants to tap them down. Now, what is the largest Slavic country in the world? Tell me that. Kind of get the vast area for this in. I would say Russia. Russia is the largest. I don't know why I'm pointing out there. But the point is, Russia didn't particularly like Serbia. But Russia saw themselves as the protectors of the Slavs, and they hated Austria. Hated them. So, Serbia, who Russia didn't like either, had one ally. Russia was the protector of Serbia. Now, who is Austria's only real ally? They did fight a war in the 1860s, but now, because there's really nobody else. Germany's the only ally of Austria. And even though Germany is incredibly powerful, dynamic, and Austria is becoming decrepit, all we got. You see an issue here now. Could this pull these two countries into war? Nationalism. This would be the trigger of war. So look at the map. Isn't it kind of amazing? There's Austria-Hungary in 1914. Look at all the countries that would be created by the mid-1920s. There's the new Yugoslavia, Romania the big hunk. And these countries, like Serbia, Bulgaria, Albania, Montenegro, Greece, they had won their independence with the Ottoman Empire. And so they were all brand new too. That's part of the reason why Bosnia, for example, has a huge Muslim population, because Ottomans make sense. So, speaking of this area, what of Germany? Germany's a brand new country too. They were created in 1871, and they wanted to promote German nationalism because you had all these principalities in Germany. that were never unified. Oh, sure, they spoke the same language. And there was talk of German nationalism going back to Napoleon's era. But for example, even when the German Empire was created in 1871, there's still going to be a king of Bavaria in Munich. And in fact, when World War I began, there was a German army, but there was also still a Bavarian army and a Württemberg army and a Baden-Baden army. Just a weird place. So how do you combine all these different groups of Germans? And especially the Bavarians, for example, hate the Prussians around Berlin. Vice versa, they don't like each other. They're mostly Lutheran in the north. They speak Low German, here they speak High German, Stellish. And so they don't like each other. So they made up a mythology. They made up an identity for Germany that could say, regardless if you're from Munich or from Cologne or from Weimar, we're all the same. Kind of what the United States did. They made up an identity. So they just went back and they grabbed old Germanic mythology from Germanic tribes, then that were written down by the Romans and kind of made up. They pulled that in. They pulled out Viking stuff. They just did all this stuff and made up a German mythology. They say, regardless of where you're from, we're all Germans together. And it spread like wildfire. And they said that the German identity was one of nothing but progress. And everybody is jealous of us. They called that German civilization culture. And what they said was, everybody wanted what we had. They're jealous of our science, the greatest scientists in the world, the greatest authors, the greatest composers. We're all German together, and they're all jealous of us. And they want to take us down, pollute our blood. They are enemies. And if you look at the map, here's Russia and here's France. And both despise Germany and vice versa. We're surrounded by enemies. So when Germany does a war, they and this goes back to Prussia, they would designate it by the year it started, 1942, World War I. And they gave out these medals to both German speakers and also allies who were English. English is a Germanic language for culture. And that is Germanian Cologne. And everybody is jealous of it. And what makes Germans so special? Remember social Darwinism and that new racial science where they started dividing people up in races? There's a special German race. And this was, they started talking about this in the 1840s, but once Darwin hit, they started really hitting by the 1890s. What is this German race? Since races are just made up, we'll give it a name. What do they call it? That must be protected. Anyone know? The Aryans. You must protect this Aryan race. And what makes somebody an Aryan? This Nordic ideal of Germania. Blonde hair, blue eyes. Even though, of course, it's our blonde hair, blue. It doesn't matter. Now, this is totally made. Race is all it's made of. There is a nation of Aryans. I've said this in class before. Anybody remember where? Iran. Yeah. And because that was an ethnic group that came from the steppes of central Russia. Where this in Kazakhstan right here, swept in here, swept down here, yeah. So here is a postcard, postcards are brand new, given to little kids in 1916 in Germany to promote the war effort. And there's Germany being attacked by everybody. How evil, they're so jealous of Germany. So who's this representing? That's France. Britain. This is vaguely the Middle East. Arabia. The French. That represents Africa. For some reason they put, it's very common, say anybody from Africa either had a turban or a fez. Vaguely Asia. Russia is this. America. And everybody is jealous of Germany and attacking them. So we must strike first, or they will overwhelm us. I wonder what that's going to lead to. France also had their sense of nationalism. And French nationalism was about two provinces they lost in the Franco-Prussian War back in 1870. Alsace and Lorraine. They were French majority population. Yes, there's Germans living there too. Germany took them, and they want to return that. And so now French policy, every French politician must make it very, very clear. We're going to return those provinces. We cannot allow us Frenchmen to have these provinces go to Germany, which of course means war with Germany. So you have both countries basically talking war the whole time, and the United States is going to be in the middle of this very soon. Speaking of that, let's get to alliances and militarism. Alliances. So, World War I, there were basically 5 great powers. If there are 5 great powers, you want to be on the side of the 3. No one power could dominate. Yes, Britain had by far the biggest fleet. Germany had the best army. Russia had bigger, but not near as good. France was right there. You know, as I said, 5. One country was not a great power, even though they really, really wanted it. Italy was just still divided. It was a new country too. And so everybody began to ally themselves. And so there are going to be 2 big alliances we have to get. And then one I already mentioned, one other. The first alliance we have to get is this. Because of basically Germany offended everybody, and the German aggression, especially by their Kaiser, and very bombastic talk, we have write down the Triple Alliance. But the Triple Alliance was basically only an alliance of 2 countries. It started with the Dual Alliance, Germany and Austria. They had an ironclad alliance. Germany felt surrounded by enemies and needed Austria. Of course, Austria was relatively weak. So Germany would liken their alliance to be shackled to a corpse. But Italy, for colonial reasons, joined the alliance, thus the Triple. But Austria and Italy hated each other. And they both look at it like, we can't really trust them as an ally. And Italy would turn out to be a bad ally. As in, they would declare war on Austria and Germany in 1915. By definition, if your ally declares war on you, bad ally. And everyone write down really quickly the Triple Entente. We have top, yeah, well. That is a dual alliance, France and Russia. I'm putting it in Russians and France, just go with it, France and Russia. Why? One's a republic, one's an autocratic monarch, but they hate Germany. Germany began to build a fleet. And that pushed Britain to make an understanding. That's the term understanding. They didn't join the alliance, but Britain kind of joined it saying, we're kind of scared of German aggression. We'll agree to kind of talk. But Britain, to finish the alliances tomorrow. So don't forget, we have a little bit of reading.
We have a quiz on it.
I don't think I'll have a quiz because I don't have enough points on that thing.
Okay.
Thank you. You are good.
Did you get a new play tonight? You probably already know it. Circle 2.
So what period are you doing again, Mom? 6? Is that what you said?
Yeah.
Are you pretty sick?
Yeah.
No, don't worry. Just don't let me forget, okay? Same thing, 6?
Yeah, it's
So
basically.
I'm in the US history, I'm back in the hallway, no big deal, but.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, you don't know circle 1.
Oh, I didn't come over and get it.
Yes. Circle 2 has a post screen and circle 1.
Very good, thank you. And
What is the, so I know the video, but I don't have the paper for it. Yes,
I think Cutter comes first.
let me get it for you.
and then I will get that to you tomorrow.
Yeah, get it as soon as you can. If you need a couple days.
I'm not sure why we're putting it in just for you.
Good sound.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
Lex? Don't leave me.
What is right?
Gotta wait for me, everyone's supposed to wait for me. Oh, yeah, pull that dark shirts on. Very cold sweats. And very gray sweats there too. Yeah, do you have a black shirt underneath your sweat? You do. All right, well planned. It's just baby blue here. I like it. Okay, see you tomorrow. I couldn't get my mouth to work.
People are saying that. We're gonna be good.
What?
Where have you been?
Where have I been?
I'm very-